there's been a post that a chief had made about mentoring one of his junior sailors that said he did not want to be a chief, and it's kind of gone viral, so I want to react to it. If you've seen this before, stay tuned. What's up, guys? You're tuning in to Nikki MGTV for another military video for all your military video needs. As always, you can hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, or down in the comments below if you have questions. But as always, let's go right to the topic, and that is why junior sailors do not want to become chiefs. Pretty much this chief's call to action was the chiefs need to do better, because when he's mentoring a junior sailor that's E5, ask him if you want to be a chief, and without skipping a beat, he said absolutely not, and says that most chiefs should take this personally, and that he feels that there's no missed conversation, there's no missed ability to mentor people, and that's his take. And he's kind of challenging the Chiefs mess to step up their game, and he says he is going to keep that on his board or wall or whatever he has written down, and kind of use that as his motivating factor to inspire junior people. If you're in another service, or you're just not part of the military community in general, a chief petty officer is someone that is the rank of E7. I'm not trying to offend any chiefs out there, but so you understand, there's E1 to E9. They are at the E7 level. That's where the chief's mess starts, like centralized in regards to like a brotherhood, quote unquote. I'm not in the chief's mess, so I can't totally talk about it. And I'm going to talk about everything I want to preface in this video before any chiefs, any person watches this, before they share this with a million other people and get offended. So watch this part. It's not for me trying to rant or bash any specific chief. I have many friends that are chief petty officers that I met when I was a more junior person. They were maybe like an E5 or E6 maybe, and they're already in the chief's mess. It's not against any one person. This is more so just like a healthy conversation, healthy discussion, reflection, if you will, from my point of view. And that way, I guess that can be viewed, and maybe someone else will get something out of it. But again, just healthy conversation. Second, I actually have interest in becoming a chief petty officer. If you guys are corpsmen, I became an independent duty corpsman partially to the fact that I wanted a chance to become a chief petty officer. I wanted to move up somehow, because at the job of pharmacy tech, I did not see myself making chief petty officer, which is why I went to independent duty corpsman. So obviously, I do have a vested interest or an aspiration to become a chief. Third, understand that my viewpoint is skewed. I'm not a chief petty officer. I'm not in the mess. Haven't been selected. I'm not up for board yet. I'm not doing any of that stuff. So really, my point of view is skewed. So take this with a grain of salt. Like I said before, this is opinionated. Lastly, my grandfather was a chief. Respect the hell out of him, which is why I still see the tradition in it. There's obviously a huge lineage of traditions for the chief petty officer rank and above. So yeah, that's my entire preface for this video before you watch it. So if you're gonna hate on it, go for it. But I'm just letting you know, those are kind of how I want to preface this, so nobody skews what I'm saying into something else. So these are the reasons why I feel that there are people that are junior that don't want to be a chief petty officer. First one was my very own realization. So I was 19 years old as a pharmacy technician at Naval Medical Center San Diego, and we had a lot of retired chiefs and first classes and stuff like that. And I was 19 and I was a farm tech, and I was working alongside these people that did 20 plus years in the military, and I realized quickly, I said, if I stay doing this, I'm gonna end up like them. Not like that was a bad thing, but I saw more for myself after the military than going back to doing the same job that maybe an E2, E3 is doing. And that was my personal experience of why I think people may not consider it, because where's the growth at in that? And I think as a chief petty officer, most people do want to mentor their juniors and get them to grow. And always, I think it's just like as if you're a parent. You're wanting that person to do better than you, right? Or to accomplish the same thing, if not more than you, because you're hoping that what you've done and what triumphs and tribulations you've been through have obviously passed on to the next generation, and they can learn from that. Next is that mentorship. I feel like the chief to master chief ranks that are there, they're huge influence, huge persuasion. They have a lot of weight, a lot of expertise and knowledge. But I think the millennial generation that's here today, I think they want to be the bottom liner. I think these are people that are kind of shooting for the stars. And my idea is it's very different getting out now, because the economy is much better than when I joined in 2008. And I'm seeing that there are more people that are seeing the competition outside the military and wanting to go for that because they can earn more, they can get respect, they can get these things in other places. For the past decade or so, it was kind of not like that until very recently, where we've noticed this change in the economy. And the third thing is the division of people that are in the Chiefs mess, people that are real influencers, and then people that are not as strong influencers within the Chiefs mess. I think juniors vibe that. They can see that, you know, and social media, I think, has had an influence on that image of the Chiefs mess. Obviously, there's stuff that gets spread around on Navy Times and stuff that gets leaked out, and, you know, that juniors see this stuff, and so maybe it's always happened, but again, like other things that have been always happening in the community, the country, everything, like people are more aware now than they were before, probably because there's just more access to the information. So I think that division and not cohesion noted might be one thing that people note as to why they don't see the strength in the tradition or brotherhood. Fourth is just Chiefs doing what they're supposed to do. They're mentoring junior sailors and telling them, hey, I want you to do more than this. Like, obviously this is good. What you're doing is strong work, but you know, I've talked to a lot of Chiefs that are hitting towards their 20 years. They didn't get a degree or they didn't do something for themselves. And they say, I was so focused on the juniors, I didn't focus on myself. And so I think that message is coming across more. Just my experience when I was in IDC school as an E5 and as an E6 now, I'm seeing that come around, that message become a little bit more clear, and it's definitely respectful. I'm on the downturn, quote unquote, of a 20-year career, so I'm past 10 years, so I'm now, but I have that fighting spirit still. So all the way up to Master Chiefs say go for it, where I think that culture is good. And a lot of the Master Chiefs were saying before in the Navy, if you told anybody you were trying to go officer versus being a chief, that was kind of like frowned upon. So I do like the direction of where the Navy's going and the mentorship that Chiefs are giving in regards to going officer, but I think there could be some ways that we can make it better or sweeten the pot for people that do want to be a Chief Petty Officer. The fifth one is the show, the game, okay? As we know in the military, playing the game is very much something that you just have to do, but I feel like as someone that's new to being a first class petty officer and hearing from seasoned people that are like 17, 18 years that are going through the process of being selected for Chief Petty Officer, it feels like you're shooting in the dark for what you're hoping that they're wanting to see. And we have all these guidelines and precepts and all this other stuff, and it feels like there's just a lot of stuff to consider, and I feel like that can make some people feel like there's just so much monotony in the process, and like that I think juniors will see that on paper these people that are being selected may not be as good as others, so maybe that might sway them, because that whole process of selection, I've looked at just ranking boards for junior sailors, and that's tough enough. So I can't imagine going through how many ever packages. So I understand that job is tough, but I want to say that could be a contributing factor to why people don't want to be Chief Petty Officers. My sixth one is there are people that are in certain positions that get discouraged that they will never, or their chances of making Chief Petty Officer are much less than other places, jobs, stuff like that. So my experience personally, I was a farm tech. Now, how was I going to diversify as a farm tech when I was already in, 8 years at that point fighting to get sea duty, and they're like, you need a good seashore rotation, and I'm like, well, I can't get sea duty. That's just one thing I want to throw out there, is like, it's kind of disheartening for some people that are in that position that they're fighting. It's just sometimes, you can have a really stellar person and they're not going to meet the mark. And like I was saying, I've had some great HM1s that were mentors to me. I had one when I got to Spain that was getting EPs after EPs, but because he had no sea time within what they were looking at and he was fighting for it, still trying to get anything, it just didn't happen. I know Chiefs will say this or see this as well, of people that they drop their pack, they give up the battle, because it can be hard, because you're fighting and there's just other forces that be as far as where you need to be at, where the Navy needs you versus what you need to be doing for your career. The last one I want to say is maybe because people will have a bitter taste in their mouth I've heard a lot of stories when I first came in 2008 where there were a lot of chiefs that were standing up for people. But what happened was we kind of went to this, the Navy went to this pendulum swing of like, we were so fat and we were kind of grading down. And so anyone that had like a alcohol related incidents, I was seeing people get kicked out all the time. And it felt like there wasn't much defense for them. And I do want to say that in the past few years, I've kind of seen that pendulum swinging back to where we are seeing more second chances, ability for a sailor to retain their career or make it. So I do want to say that that has affected junior sailors. I do want to admit I did use some of the Navy thread on Reddit on my phone to kind of give me some good ideas or points to make sure that I could give a good, well-rounded idea of what I think might be contributing to this. Again, not to offend anybody, not to do anything, just healthy conversation and just see what you guys think. Alright guys, so that wraps up the video, but I want to know from you guys, what are some of the reasons why you do or do not want to be a chief petty officer? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you are a chief, let me know what your thought process is on this. Because again, this is a full round conversation because ranks affect everywhere, up, down, left, right, everywhere. And we all have our role or place in this, so definitely let me know what you guys think down below. But as always guys, if you guys do have questions, you can always hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.